Imagine developing the perfect product, a machine that was tailor made for a customer base who had endlessly polled about performance, the features, the technology, and the amenities that they had always wanted. Imagine that product being such an abject failure that every single unsold unit was brought back into the factory, stripped of all that neat stuff you developed, and sold for less than half the price. No, this isn't a story about the Edsel. This is a story of the Edsel of tractors, the incredible 1938 Minneapolis-Moline UDLX comfort tractor, a machine billed and sold as the world's most modern tractor and a veritable quote-unquote prairie limousine. By 1940, nearly every trace of this revolutionary machine's existence was gone, and today a scant handful remain in existence, held in the tight grip of tractor collectors around the country. So what was this thing and why did it fail so badly? Was there a fundamental flaw? Did it fail to meet expectations? Was it just a bad idea? Let's explore the story and find out. Minneapolis-Moline had been building tractors for the better part of a decade when it decided to really attempt to shake up the industry. Their machines were well respected, as were the plows and implements they made, but this was a period of time where dozens and dozens of companies were battling for the hearts and minds of America's farmers with their new tractors. Advancements were coming hot and heavy, but few of them had anything to do with the operator. There was more horsepower, better tires, more gears in the transmission, and an ever-growing menagerie of implements that could be run off the tractors. But at the end of the day, the farmer himself was still literally sitting in the same spot. He was out in the open battling the blazing sun, the freezing cold, the wind, the rain, the hail, and the sleet during the winter. From mud being thrown off the wheels to nasty gnats and bugs, the best you could ever hope for was an umbrella or some sort of other improvised shade device and a cool breeze on a hot day. One of the major innovations for comfort in the 1930s was the development of a device called a heat houser. This was a canvas system that attached to the cowling of the tractor and fed the heat of the engine back towards the operator. Some of these had a windscreen of some sort, but many were simply a large canvas bag that helped keep the operator warmer than he otherwise would have been with a jacket and gloves on. Knowing that, it makes sense as to why Minneapolis-Moline would make their bold decision to hire an outside research firm to survey farmers and find out what they wanted in the perfect tractor. Thousands of questions and answers later, the firm presented Minneapolis-Moline with their findings. Farmers wanted to be protected from the elements. They wanted a device with some flexibility to do more than just trundle through a field. They wanted some features that were found in automobiles but never seen in farm equipment. And on top of all this, they wanted enough power to save themselves time in the field while doing work. Taking all of this into account, the designers and engineers at Minneapolis-Moline went to work around 1936 to create a machine that would be known as the UDLX Comfort Tractor, which deciphered is the Minneapolis-Moline Model U Deluxe Comfort Tractor. This was to be the largest single leap forward in tractor design and engineering since machines of this ilk began to replace horses a couple of decades prior. Rather than build off a complete new model from scratch, the company based the UDLX off of their popular and correctly sized Model U. This family of tractors was introduced into production in 1938 and remained in production through the late 1950s, selling more than 33,000 units through its lifetime. The UDLX was based off the same 88-inch wheelbase, 36 horsepower, 4.6-liter platform as the standard Model U. That was a 4-cylinder engine. After that, everything got more interesting. A fully enclosed body was created with stylized front fenders, an automotive-style grille, and a chrome front bumper that was contoured around the front of the tractor. There were headlights attached to the body which had a high and low setting, along with other automotive cues on the outside. Moving to the rear, a fully enclosed steel cab was custom built and mated to the body. The cab had safety glass windows which tilted out for ventilation, a padded driver's seat, a fold-down jump seat for a passenger, a full dashboard with automotive-style gauges, an electric fan to move air in the hot months, a heater to keep it warm in the cold months, barn-style doors that opened at the rear, a roof-mounted spotlight that was controlled from inside the cab, a dome light, a cigar lighter, a glove compartment, and yes, even a rearview mirror. So why did they add all this car stuff? Well, because the UDLX was designed to be a tractor and the car for the farmer. Seriously. One of the defining features of the UDLX was a 5-speed manual transmission that allowed road speeds up to 40 miles an hour. When the tractor was shifted into 5th gear, another lever could be pulled to effectively disengage the first 4 gears in the transmission to reduce the number of rotating parts, help cut down on vibration, and allow the engine to rev over the 1700 RPM limiter it was governed on in every other gear. Additionally, the gears in the transmission were helical cut. This was the first tractor ever sold that could be shifted while moving. To this point, every other tractor with straight cut gears in the transmission required the operator to stop and select a gear before it would properly engage and move. The comfort tractor could truly be driven like a car. The 6,500-pound tractor had manual drum brakes 16 inches in diameter on the rear wheels only. It had no suspension. It had no hope of ever running over 40 miles an hour on anything but glass-smooth streets, and those really didn't exist in 1938. It also had less hope than that of stopping in less than a train length with those brakes from the warp speed of 40 miles an hour. The cab was very, very cramped, and people who stood at even average height found it to be claustrophobically small. The cab was mounted low on the tractor, so upon entry, the driver had to clamber over the seat, the transmission, and the PTO shaft, which was right by his leg before slipping into the seat. I'm not really sure how the passenger was able to get into the tractor if the jump seat was down beyond anything performing perhaps a combat role of some sort. The blind spot out over the nose while driving must have been incredible, and while it's unlikely any of these tractors saw a lot of over-the-road duty, the brakes, lack of any suspension, and blind spot presents a really scary trifecta of things to think about when behind the wheel. But despite these obvious drawbacks, the machine was absolutely the state-of-the-art of 1938, and it checked all the boxes the thousands of farmers polled had wanted. All Minneapolis-Moline needed to do now was to sell the thing, and the company went on a blitz. There was a barnstorming tour of the Midwest where demonstrator tractors were hyped, used, and put on display at Minneapolis-Moline dealers wherever the company thought they could make sales, which was everywhere. There were syndicated newspaper stories bought and paid for, run in local and national papers across the country. There were newsreels produced, and in the end, a lot of farmers, potential customers and wallets, came to see the UDLX wherever it stopped. And it sold 100 units in 2 years. After all the work to poll the farmers, after all the work to engineer the tractor, the body, the cab, and the drivetrain, after all the work to promote the machine as the world's most advanced tractor, it sold 100 units by 1940. The remaining tractors sitting on dealer lots were recalled, stripped of all their extraneous equipment, converted into normal Model U pieces, and sent back out to be sold for less than half the price. So why did this wonder of modern farming fail? It was the wrong tractor for the wrong price at the wrong time. For starters, even in 1938, farmers were still in tough shape from the harsh and seemingly relentless years of the middle 1930s. Getting them to buy anything was a challenge. Getting them to buy a model of tractor that was twice as expensive as the regular Model U and nearly 3 times as expensive as a Ford Deluxe car was just a bridge too far to cross. Secondly, even though the farmers polled wanted all the comfy amenities that Minneapolis-Moline delivered to them, they A, didn't want to pay for them, and B, were really reticent to be seen as fancy, or a weakling, or a sissy as compared to their fellow farmers who were roughing it out in the open with their own tractors. This was seen as an opulent machine and something that defied the down-home, Spartan, and proud living most farmers were existing under at that time in history. It sounds insane, but like lots of people who love cars and wish that a manufacturer would make a light, simple, cheap, powerful car, they don't actually buy them when things come to pass. So the UDLX will go down in history as a massive failure, but Minneapolis-Moline certainly got the last laugh. Everything they had in this tractor was exactly what farmers wanted, and they started to get with frequency in the 60s, and by the 1970s trying to buy a full-size tractor without a cab was seemingly more difficult than buying one with one. The UDLX was decades ahead of the American farmer who eventually embraced the idea of not burning up in the sun or freezing half to death in the winter. They knew those things were not an admission of wimpiness, but a grace that modern technology could provide them. The tractors that were quote-unquote too expensive for the majority of farmers back in the day now sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars at farm auctions, and the few dozen that are known to exist are each the centerpiece of every collection that they sit in. They're typically the largest conversation piece of those collections as well. Its overgrown, nearly fanciful design, the prairie gold paint and bright red wheels, all of it was a revelation at a time of their introduction, but it was a revelation that too few people were willing to embrace. It may be wrong to have a tractor as a dream car, and if that's the case, I really don't want to be right. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more great mechanical history.